Welcome to The Jig Is Up. My name is Darcy, of course, and I had the fortune to sit down with a member of the Métis Nation and have a good conversation about some of the things that this person has seen in his time at the Nation and, doing business with the Nation and things like that over the last few years, quite a number of years. And he was at the forum we had, which was, I believe, our last episode with Victoria and Joe. And he was in the audience, and he had brought up a lot of questions and a lot of concerns that I was very interested to learn more about. And so I thought it'd be really good to sit down with him and just hear his side of the story on a lot of these things. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation I had with Rod Stagg. All right, well, it's Darcy here at The Jig Is Up, and I want to welcome to the show Rod. Welcome. Thanks for being on.
Hi, Darcy.
Hi. So we're sitting down today. I met you the other night at the candidates forum that we did, and that's one of the previous podcasts we have. I think it's the last one. And you had brought up a lot of issues, and I thought it would be really good to sit down with you. So here we are. And so I kind of wanted to start with the Métis elections coming up, and just kind of get your feel for it. And there was a lot of questions you brought up at that event that I'm very interested to hear more about and learn about, because they're things that I've never heard about before. So I guess we'll start with the elections. You have stated to me that you're very supportive of Joe, and I guess I'm just curious why you think Joe would be a good candidate or a good president for Region 3.
Joe Pimlett's a huge member of the community. He gives to the community on a regular basis without asking for anything back. As far as I'm concerned, the other candidates, nice people. Don't get me wrong. I will never ever say anything against them personally. The way they run their business, the way they operate, I'm not a fan of. Mm-hmm. I am not a Lawrence Gervais. Nice man, nice father, nice person. But as a leader, he has personally let me down on everything from Métis urban housing to the way that they have. We'll get into this a little bit further, I hope, with the having non-Métis contractors in doing the work in our 250 homes in Calgary.
Wow. And
also the apprenticeship, with him being the co-minister of Rupert's Land, the opportunities there are for Métis apprenticeship in our future that I have had the opportunity to create a pipeline for generations of Métis skilled labor in our community. And Lawrence dropped the ball. He did nothing with it, and wouldn't even talk to me about it, why he couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
With Myrtle, lovely lady. I've talked to her on other occasions, but again, she is an employee of Rupert's Land. She's on leave right now, of course, to run for this election. But with Myrtle, same thing. The questions of apprenticeship that I've talked to her in the past fell on deaf ears. Nothing was done. Sure, she was working for Rupert's Land, and she says it was outside of her job description. But what is the job description of a Métis person, a Métis politician, a Métis supporter? And that's to get things done.
Absolutely.
And when I've had a request, and it hasn't been a written request, and of course they're going to fall back on, I've had a request into Rupert's Land for just about 20 years for a first-year apprentice, plumbing apprentice.
Yeah.
They've never really delivered.
Well, and I think that's what's most interesting about this. You're talking about apprenticeships and stuff, and getting young Métis into the trades. But you actually, you own your own business. You're in the trades. And so you have a kind of a unique opportunity to make that available. And it doesn't seem like they're really taking you up on that offer.
I don't understand how they can't take me serious. I'm a journeyman plumber, gas fitter, steam fitter, pipe fitter. I've got my cross-connection certification, and I'm a third-year refrigeration air conditioning apprentice.
Yeah.
The federal government takes me serious because I'm a Red Seal journeyman plumber. And also I have, because I'm also a director of the Mechanical Contractors Association, I brought together a proposal to the Mechanical Contractors Association in talking with the executive director, Russ Evans, and I also talked to Lawrence Gervais first about this before I took it any further. And of course, that was Métis apprenticeship in the trades. From there, it was got good response from the Mechanical Contractors Association, and then from the Métis Nation, we had a positive response. So I put together a proposal for the apprenticeship in the mechanical contractors, which are the plumbers, where it was unanimously approved by the board of directors for the Mechanical Contractors Association. Now, this proposal was going to be for all across Alberta. This proposal was going to allow our youth to get pre-trained through the Rupert's Land Institute, which I believe is their job, in training our youth to get prepared for the future job market. And they would be able to then stay in their communities, because we have mechanical contracting, plumbing companies all throughout Alberta. And in every small town, Peace River, not that Peace River is all that small, of course, but everywhere from Medicine Hat to Lethbridge to Calgary to Edmonton, all across the province. And then these Métis youth or adults would not have to leave their communities. They'd be able to find employment in their communities. The facts are that the federal government budget of 2016 pledged $85.4 million over 5 years to support union-based apprenticeship. And in Alberta, the 2017 to 2020 fiscal plan has $46 million for apprenticeship delivery and new training opportunities. This was the reason that I brought this forward. On, what day was it? I'll just double check here. I believe it was March 22nd. I had a meeting where our president, Audrey Poitras, was there. Marlene Lands, the president of Region 3. Lauren Gervais, the co-minister of Rupert's Land, was there at the meeting. We had Lauren Gladue, the president of Rupert's Land. And I laid this out, gift-wrapped them an opportunity to work with the Mechanical Contractors Association for generations to come. And I left that meeting feeling positive about it. And I never heard from them for 13 months.
Wow.
I had to call them to see what was going on.
Wow.
At which time now I have retracted the offer of working with the nation until after this election. If Joe Pimlott gets in, I will continue down this path. If not, I do not feel that if with Lawrence, he being the co-minister of Rupert's Land and dropping the ball so badly, in my opinion, on this, not being able to get it over the finish line, I would not be able to work with Lawrence on this. And Myrtle, being an employee and coming from that atmosphere of Rupert's Land, I'm not sure if she could do anything also. So,
well, it seems like a kind of an entrenched view then. If they were to get back in, it's just more of the same of what's happening now. Is what I would predict. So, and it's really quite sad that they won't jump on this opportunity. I mean, that's a phenomenal opportunity. And I think, especially in today's atmosphere in governments, if you can walk in with an Indigenous plan already laid out with, like you said, the Mechanical Contractors Association. So you've already done the work. You've already done the private industry. You've already put those two together. Everybody's agreed. I mean, that is gift wrapped. You literally just walk into the government and they do nothing except get their name in the paper with a big picture and say, hey, look what we've done. And they get credit for it. So to me, that's a win for not only Indigenous, Métis people and stuff, and for yourself and the youth, but I mean, it's a win for the government. This is really a no-brainer. It's a lobbed ball out of the ballpark.
And this is an opportunity not just for the Métis Nation. This is an opportunity for the people of Canada. This year is just starting off, as far as I was concerned, in Alberta. The federal government, of course, they're pushing apprenticeship for skilled labor, of which we do not have enough tradesmen. And the Canadian tradesmen are some of the top programs in the world.
Yes, they
for being recognized for our training.
Absolutely.
So here we are. We have an opportunity to create skilled labor for Canada and to help out the Métis community. And Rupert's Land, our leaders, our ministers, dropped the ball inside the Métis Nation.
Yeah. Well, and I think that says a lot about when they make these grand speeches and they say, oh, we're going to be our own government. We're going to do all these great things. But, I mean, if they can't make something like this happen, when it was essentially all done for them, I mean, sign the paper, go talk to the government and make everything happen. I mean, in the 13 months they didn't communicate with you, they could have had that going and probably had youth enrolled in it already by that time, I would think.
Yes. The apprenticeship program, it's all geared towards the next economic boom in Alberta. Hopefully that's going to be in a very short time in our future.
Yeah.
And those Métis apprentices could be ready for that big next economic boom to be able to contribute to Alberta's economy for the future.
Well, and like you said, I know from working around trades almost my entire adult life, I know that Canadian tradesmen and women are worldwide sought after. I think the quality of training and work you get here far and away exceeds almost every other country. Because I know guys, like I used to work for a company and we were doing work down in Cuba, and it was all, they wanted Canadian workers, not necessarily just because of the U.S. embargo, but the Canadian workers did the best job. They brought in the best skills, and they did it with the best knowledge. So, I mean, this is really an opportunity, like you said, not just beyond Canada and beyond Alberta. I mean, there's a real opportunity for Métis youth who might not realize that they could be working overseas 6 months of the year or doing some of those kinds of jobs with trades.
The skilled labor opportunities that we have, and more importantly, with skilled labor comes higher wages.
Mm-hmm.
There's more dollars, for our community to spend within our community, which hasn't happened either. Which is something I'd like to talk about a little later on, of course, with the business directory, and how we can help each other, rather than just hire other people that we're going to hire anyways.
Absolutely,
let's hire people out of our Métis community.
Yeah, well, and that's another issue that you had sort of brought up at the forum was, I know with urban housing, I think you mentioned it, and is the fact that they're hiring non-Métis contractors. I've heard it from other people where they have non-Métis employees working in Edmonton. And, well, you do need people with the skills. At some point in time, though, you do need to look at hiring Métis people for Métis jobs within the Métis nation to better your own nation, to better your people.
From what I've seen, Métis Urban Housing, as a capital corporation, the people that run it are not Métis. The executive director, nice man.
Yeah.
Nice man. Why he does not support Métis business, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do work for Métis Urban Housing. 3 years ago, they stopped. There was a changing of the guard, and all of a sudden, they were not using my company, which is fine. I don't need their work.
Mm-hmm.
My company is large enough and self-sufficient that we do not need the Métis nations at the urban housing, Métis Urban Housing's work.
Yeah.
What bothers me is the Métis tile setter, carpet layer, carpenter, roofer, any of these guys that are trying to feed their 3 kids at home and their wife, and they're struggling right now because of our economy.
Yes.
And here we have 250 homes in Calgary that people are bragging about, oh, we're going to do renovations on them. Well, why are we not using the Métis tradesmen that we have available
Absolutely.
here in Calgary? And I've asked this of Edmonton and Calgary.
Yep.
I've talked to Marlene and Lawrence about this. I want to just state, Marlene Lands has done a wonderful job. I love Marlene. But in the same breath, I have to not consider my feelings for these other people. I have to consider what's best for the nation's future,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I am doing this because of what I feel is going to be the best opportunity for our people to come. So Métis Urban Housing sends me a contract out of the blue.
Yeah.
And it is signed. We send all the information, insurance, WCB clearances, everything we have to do work for the Métis Urban Housing, and get a signed contract back from the director of housing, and then we get no work. And we send emails. We were happy to start working with you. I get an email back a month later saying, "Oh, thank you for your interest, but we have another plumbing company we're using now."
Yeah.
Why did they send me the contract in the first place? I don't know.
Yep.
I'm not worried about these things right now because I'm waiting until after the election. After the election, then I will decide what I will be doing to pursue this. I've got a contract that they're not honoring, but that's their choice.
Yep.
And if there's anything wrong with myself or the type of work my company does or anything like that, then we can deal with that. But just to be ignored is not satisfactory.
Well, and you strike me as the kind of guy that if they would have said, "We sent you the contract, but there's these 4 other Métis contractors who are just starting out, and they got 3 guys working for them, and we thought it'd be better to give them the work." I think you seem like the kind of guy that would go, "That okay, I get that," if they were Métis. But just to be like, "No, we're not using you." Well, that's not really an explanation. That's not a good enough reason, I don't think. I mean, unless you did something really bad. But
I've been in business for 30 years.
Yeah.
And do work for some of the largest corporations in Canada, in the United States, and North America. And so it's not a matter of the quality of my work. It's not a matter of the anything we do. It's a decision that Métis Urban Housing is making. And right now, the leadership is not willing to go and talk to me about it. I was the 2017 Entrepreneur of the Year, and I talked to the executive director of Métis Urban Housing, told him my concerns. Haven't heard back. Haven't heard a thing.
Wow. See, and I've heard stories about the Métis Urban Housing, and I've never heard really great stories about it. The fact that they have 250 homes here in Calgary, I mean, I would think that's a huge opportunity, especially when you bring this package, this gift of apprenticeship to them. I mean, the first thought as soon as you said Métis Urban Housing, my first thought is, so you have this apprenticeship program that you've pretty much finished off. They just got to sign some papers and make it happen and start recruiting. And then you already have houses that need maintenance and stuff. So it seems like a kind of almost a no-brainer. Like, we have a demand for that type of work within the nation itself, let alone going out to other businesses and other contractors and just doing general apprenticeship work. But
and the opportunities inside the nation with these houses is nothing compared to private industry.
Yes,
and the opportunities to work in hospitals, office buildings, superstores. Putting in the infrastructure and building these stores, and office buildings, fire halls, hospitals, everything that's available to an apprenticeship. For these adults, young adults, youth, to be able to strive and to prosper. But again, for some reason, somebody has made a decision it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, and I think it's important. You had said that you have to set aside your personal feelings, because I think it's important for people to hear that you're not doing this because you're bitter. You're not doing this because you hate people. You're looking 3 generations from now and saying, well, where are we going to be if we're not setting stuff up now? And I think that's a really good viewpoint, and I think it's a viewpoint that we need to have more of in general society, let alone just within the Métis community.
Well, the thing is, too, if you're going to talk the talk, let's walk the walk. I have Métis apprentices that I put through, and I have Métis apprentice now. I have a 22-year-old First Nation young man who is apprenticed with me as 4 years and is a journeyman plumber at 22 years old. Mm-hmm. And so the Aboriginal community is what I'm looking to help with my preference and my
loyalty or whatever.
loyalties
Yeah,
do fall to the Métis.
absolutely.
And we have to take care of our own backyard.
Yes,
We have to take care of our own backyard to be able to help any of the other Aboriginal communities.
for sure.
So that's where I believe we should.
Well, and I mean that you have to start creating these economic opportunities within, because the governments can only do so much. But when like private industry is willing to work, like the Contractors Association, you have to seize those opportunities to create those economies within. Like you said, like this was all across Alberta. It's not just having one person out there as a tradesperson. That person might start their own business. Then now they're hiring a couple of apprentices. Well, then 20 years from now, that person's in a position you're in, where they can now have multiple apprentices. They have a business. They can do more with what they've gotten. And it's because they were part of this nation of people, and it was created because they were part of this community. And I think that's a really important aspect of community building.
Yes, it is, and it's very tough to see this, to see our locals and the problems that we're having there. Part of the problems that I see in leadership, in our community now, is it's a very, very time-consuming job, and I appreciate that for the leaders that are out there. But I sit on the Métis, on the Local 87, on their housing committee.
Yeah.
And I'm there, and we were having a meeting on the lease for the property.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking my time at the end of the day. Everybody else is. And Lawrence Gervais, he says, I got 15 minutes and I have to leave. I've got to get home to the babysitter.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that everybody has that life and everything else. But if you're going to take on this position, you either take it on and understand the responsibilities that come with it, or do not.
Yeah.
That's your choice.
Absolutely.
I'm very, Lawrence, he's a father of two twins.
Yeah.
I've got two boys. I love my boys and everything else. I'm sure that he loves his children more than anything else. And so I get that. But if you're going to take on a government position and want to be in a position like that, then you have to be open to the criticism and the responsibilities that go along with it.
Absolutely.
For me to volunteer my time, I've got no problem with that. But for me to hear that the elected official that's there has to leave in 15 minutes. And Lawrence does this often. He shows up for events and then leaves.
Yeah.
It's what he does. So.
Well, and that is probably one of the biggest things that I've always liked about Joe, even long before these elections, long before I was even doing this podcast, is I would go to a community event and it had nothing to do with Métis stuff. And who's volunteering? Joe is. Or you'd go and he's always volunteering through the Shriners and stuff like that. It was like every event that was going on, there's Joe. And then especially if it was like Indigenous or Métis related, he was doing things when they reopened Indian Village for Stampede, but in the new location. I remember going down in there, and there's Joe. He's going over to Fort Calgary to pick up the Red River carton, bringing it back, and he's doing these. Nobody's paying him for his gas,
and nobody's helping him.
And that was not affiliated with the MNA.
Yeah.
And like you said, nobody's helping him, but he's doing these things on his own, and he has great ideas of events he wants to do, of community building he wants to do. But he can't do it on his own right now, or back then. It's more than a one-man show.
Yes. And
so that's what I've always respected about him, is that everything he's done, working at the Friendship Center, everything, was about the community, not just, I got a position now. Great.
Well, and with Joe, some people say he quit. He had his term at the as the vice as vice president of the province. Everybody, it's easy to throw stones in a glass house. His mother, passed. His family was mourning.
Yeah.
He had to be with his family, and he left for that reason.
Yes.
Some people say he quit.
Yep.
To him, and again with Lawrence and his kids saying he's got to get home, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But Lawrence is still taking his paycheck,
Yes.
And Joe left the nation to be with his family.
Yeah.
And I can only go by what Joe said to me, that he talked to Audrey and that they understood and she understood, and that it was the best thing for his family, because he had to take care of his family. They were grieving, and heaven forbid when my mother passes, I know where I'll be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. You talk about responsibility. Well, he realized there was no way he could take care of his family and do that job in Edmonton at the same time. So something had to give.
He manned up.
Yeah, exactly.
He manned up. He took care of his family.
Yeah.
I have nothing but respect for anybody that does that.
Yeah.
But he did it in such a way where he did not want to hinder the nation, the Métis Nation. He left that position. And the way they chose to fill it or not fill it is what they did.
Absolutely.
But Joe manned up and left and came back to take care of his family.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think he's in a very different spot now than he was back then, and I think he's more than ready to take control of it again and be involved. And,
and Marlene, she's been there for 22, 24 years. I'm not exactly sure, and she's done a wonderful job of getting the nation to where she is now. But again, I haven't seen it. Marlene has always been good to me. But there are people out there that say that they're scared of her, that she runs things the way she does. Yes, she's a strong-willed woman. But where I have a problem with is that she has hand-groomed Lawrence for this position, and yet I've seen him do nothing but drop the ball in his 4 years along the way.
Yeah.
So I do not see him, with all due respect to Marlene. I love you, Marlene, but I do not see Lawrence as being my leader for into our future.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to say for sure. So there was a few other things that you had brought up at the meeting, and I don't know if you wanted to touch on some of those. Just going back to, I guess, some of the apprenticeship stuff like that. But there was some other, like with Rupert's Land and things like that. Was there other things that I guess maybe you want to... Oh, we talked about the business directory. That was one of them where this was... and this was what was one of the things that was new to me is, from what I understood, what was said there is there's a business directory that was completed of Métis businesses. And to access that, so if industry wanted to come and say, hey, I want to hire a Métis business, let me see your directory, the nation would charge $1,000 for them to access that. If that's
this business directory is a joke. They've been talking about it for years and years and years. I was up in Edmonton talking to the vice president of TransCanada Pipelines, who funded this directory.
Okay. And
so it's a database for Métis business. And so I'm talking to Theo Peters up in Edmonton at the Métis Nation office. Nice young man. He's doing his job, and that's all he's doing. He works for Bruce Gladue, the Economic Development Minister, I believe, is his position. And he sent this form, and went and looked at it and everything else. And here they are. They're asking for, the names of the owners and full and part-time owners of the organization. I'm looking at the form right now. Key personnel. They're looking for the financial volumes of the business, safety programs, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. They've just eliminated 90% of the mom and pop organizations that are out there. They're asking for big projects that they've worked on and everything else. I mean, I thought that this was going to be a grassroots registry. So I'm talking to Theo, and I'm saying, what's going on here, Theo? And he goes, well, you have to fill this out. And I said, okay, then what happens? Well, then it goes in our business directory. And I said, okay, well, I'd like to see this business directory. Well, you can't. It's kind of a pay-per-view viewing. And so I said, Theo, what are you talking about? I'm a member of the Métis Nation. This here was funded for the Métis people. And he says, Rod, that's above my pay grade. And what it comes down to is it's a pay-per-view. $1,000 to take a look at it is basically what he told me. And I said, okay, Theo, I can appreciate that. This is not your position to talk about. You've done your job, and very, very well. He was very, very, spoke well, spoke educated. He knew about the policy and everything else, but he was just doing what he was told.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't blame the young man. But what I can blame is a business directory for the Métis people that I thought was coming for the Métis people, so that we could work amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Not have to rely on industry to be the token Indian, that they're looking for a Métis business so that they can get a $100 million contract from the federal government, because they have to use a certain amount of Aboriginal employment in business. And that's what I'm seeing this directory as, is those opportunities. Everybody's, look at the opportunities for us to work on the pipeline. Well, what about the people in Calgary? What about the people in Edmonton that just live in the cities? Red Deer, Lethbridge,
Medicine Hat, all these places,
all these places. What happened to the grassroots that I've been asking for 10 years, where we have a business directory where if we need a plumber, if we need an electrician, we need a roofer, if we need an accountant, if we need somebody to do Botox, something as silly as that we have a business directory where we can use our own resources, our own community. We talk about our own government, we talk about our own leadership, we talk about all these things, and yet we can't even get together a grassroots opportunity for our own businesses.
Yeah.
We talk about grassroots, we're talking about getting right down to the dirt. We don't even worry about grass. Let's get down to the dirt. Let's get down to the reality of what people need for our people to be able to take it to the next level.
Absolutely. And
that's working together, supporting each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm embarrassed by this business directory.
Well, and it seems to me like I can see their logic for having some of those questions, because if certain, in the oil industry anyways, you have to have a certain type of safety program, certain safety ratings as a company to even walk on the site at that location. So I get why they would ask those questions, but at the same time, I see what you're saying, where it's, if I'm sitting in Calgary and I need my roof fixed, my first place I should look is the Métis directory to say, is there any Métis roofing companies in Calgary? If there's not, is there any in Airdrie? And is there any surrounding community? And if there's nothing, okay, then I just go to a roofing contractor. But my first chance should be to look at that and see who's in my area that's Métis that does these things. And like you said, it's everything. It's not just trades. It's accounting, professional services, anything like that.
Anything. And the best way, the best place to look is the Jewish community. Why should we have to reinvent the wheel? Mm-hmm. The Jewish community has always supported each other, and that's why they become so successful.
Yes.
Follow the roadmap that's already set out in front of us. This database is set up for the oil and gas companies. This is set up for the work to be done up in northern Alberta, going across to British Columbia, Saskatchewan, wherever it's going to go. This is what it's set up for.
Absolutely.
It is not set up for 95% of the Métis that live in our urban communities.
Yeah.
I truly believe they'd missed the mark. I think their heart was always in the right place of thinking that they were going to do the right thing. But we take a look at big industry. So much of the big industry, and I'm going to get slapped on this one. They don't care about us.
No, they don't.
They want to be able to have Aboriginal content so they can meet their quotas. They can tell people that they are employing Aboriginal communities.
Yep.
So that they can move forward with federal guidelines.
Absolutely.
This is the facts. There are so many opportunities in other ways for us to move forward, and with a grassroots registry for each community. Let's start there, and it's so simple.
Absolutely.
Call the regional office. Give them your name. Give them your phone number. Give them your email. Whatever it is. And let's get started.
Well, and the thing is, even as we sit here and talk, I'm thinking about this directory. I'm thinking, what if there's Métis restaurant owners? Well, if I'm thinking of going out to eat, why don't I go eat there? If that's the type of food that I wanted to get. What if, anything like that? What if there's some Métis people that own a fruit and vegetable place. Well, go buy your stuff there. So it is a way to really, it doesn't even have to be like tradespeople or accountants or one person individual. It's everything. If you're going to go buy shoes, well, if a Métis person owns a shoe store, go buy the shoes there. And I'm thinking about you as you're talking, and I'm like this is...
It's a no-brainer, Darcy.
Yeah, like it'd be so valuable. And even people outside the nation who identify as Métis could access it to see where they might want to go to be around other Métis people.
It's huge. It's just let's create the Métis economy. It's
Absolutely.
as simple as that.
Yeah.
We talk about let's make the Métis great again. We were great at one time.
For sure.
Right now, we're there.
Mm-hmm.
We're the Métis. We jig, we fiddle. And then we go home for the week, yeah. And then a couple weeks later we'll get together to jig and fiddle again.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we talk and communicate and do business and support each other in all aspects of the community?
Absolutely,
that's the starting point. And I truly believe that Joe's going to get us there. Lawrence has had the opportunity to do that. He hasn't, in my opinion.
Yep.
Myrtle. She wants to try. I don't believe she can get there with the Rupert's Land mentality that she's been involved with for all these years.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that Bob Phillips, who's running for the Vice, I hope he's able to understand this.
Yeah.
Because Bob's background is industry, big industry.
Yeah.
Is he going to have anything to do with grassroots? I certainly hope so. He talks that. They all talk that. They all have the buzzwords. So we're going to do this for the youth. We're going to do this for the seniors. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Okay, you tell me you're going to do this. Now tell me how. How are you going to do this?
Exactly.
I'm tired of people promising, and, how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Tell me that. I'm willing to listen. And I just don't see a whole bunch of substance coming out of the other candidates' mouths.
No, and I think we too much of it is wrapped up in a mentality of government funding. When the reality is, like you said, if we can start building your own economies with the business directory, with these other things, apprenticeship programs as an example, and I mean there's lots of other things that you can start doing beyond that to build that economy within. That's where your strength is. Because government funding is fleeting at best. The next government that comes in with a different color is going to change all that funding. And in the end of the day, that government funding is a promise of maybe we'll give you this money. But especially when you look at the federal budget. I mean, when they're saying we're going to give $500 million over 10 years. Well, what if the blue team gets in next and they say, nope, sorry, we're cutting all that. You have no recourse on that. And so it's very up and down. Yeah.
Those are facts. The good thing is that the federal government has supported Aboriginal business for decades.
Yeah.
They really have.
Yeah.
The procurement strategy for Aboriginal business is a federal program that, back when I was involved with it, set aside $400 million for Aboriginal business every year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they flew me out from Calgary to Ottawa and Gatineau in Quebec to participate in the rewriting of the policy for the procurement strategy of Aboriginal business, for Aboriginal business.
Yeah.
My fingerprints are all over the policy. I know how the policy works. I know how the director, Brad Klein, is still the director. Lee Williams is one of the caseworkers there. That's a senior caseworker, I believe now. These are the same people who have been there for 15 years.
Yes.
And their mandate is procurement strategy for Aboriginal business. This is Métis, First Nations, or Inuit.
Yeah.
Those are the facts. Absolutely. And so here we are with an opportunity of which nobody understands or takes advantage of. Nobody can do it. It took me 3 years to build it. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to redo it. Yeah. I am willing to go back. If Joe Pimlott gets in, I am willing to go back on my own dollar. I will fly to Ottawa and I will talk to the procurement strategy for Aboriginal business executive director Brad Klein. I will take my 22-year-old son, so they're not dealing with a 59-year-old businessman. They are dealing with a 59-year-old businessman and his 22-year-old son, who is going to be using this policy for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I will take Métis businesses in Alberta and show them to the federal government on the procurement strategy for Aboriginal business. I will have Darlene Chufka out of Edmonton come down and help with the small to medium-sized enterprises, is what they call it here in Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
She will come down and work with the community and with these businesses to teach them how to do business with the government.
There you go.
And that doesn't mean that we're given work. We have to earn that work. We do have to go through the procedure and go through the hoops. But I'll tell you one thing. When I did it, it took me 3 years. And I had a champion, Gord Purcell. Gord Purcell was with Public Works, the Government Services Canada. He was the head buyer. He was the person in charge of it for Western Canada. And he championed the Aboriginal people here in Western Canada for the procurement strategy for Aboriginal business. I am going to go and I am going to look and find that person that is going to champion the cause here for Alberta. That's what I will find. And I will do that for our community if Joe gets in. Because if Lawrence gets in, I can't see it happening. Myrtle gets in, I can't see it happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I am willing to do this to involve our community.
Yeah.
I'm also willing to start something else. Myself and some other businessmen have $100,000 to invest inside our Métis community with businesses. If they're good businesses and it makes economic sense, and it is an investment, so it's an economic decision. But I have $100,000 that will be used with the Métis community and businesses to help them grow using the federal government procurement strategy for Aboriginal business, provincial government, the small to medium-sized enterprises, there's civic government, and then there's also the private industry that wants to use Aboriginal business.
Mm-hmm.
And the private industry, they want to use Aboriginal business because it's an advantage to them. The Métis community is the fastest growing community in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have the people coming in. We need more people to step up and accept their not accept, but love the fact that they're Métis and understand the opportunities that are there for them as an Aboriginal person.
Yeah. Well, and I think I really get a sense from you that you do feel a sense of responsibility to your Métis community, and I think that's what we need to foster. We need to see more fostering of that sense of responsibility, so that if I go out and I use a program and I become somewhat successful with it, that I don't just that I pay it forward, so to speak. Where, well, now my responsibility is to make that program go further. Now is to get involved and take things to the next level that is beyond where you're even thinking. And so it's like, that's what you have. It'll be a continuously growing thing, because as people go through these programs, as businesses start to develop and grow, you're going to see more employment. You're going to see more strength within that Métis community. And those things are just going to elevate. Every generation, they're going to get stronger and stronger.
It's an evolving process.
Yeah.
That will come. The big thing is about the Métis community is that, so many people handpick their situations, whether they're going to be mainstream society, non-Aboriginal, or Aboriginal because they're Métis.
Yes.
And that's people's choices. People are going to do what they feel is best for themselves.
Yeah.
But we need to do what's best for our community.
Absolutely.
If we step up and do what's right for our community, then it's just the right thing to do.
Well, and I think you'd have, if you look at Statistics Canada, the Calgary area, so Calgary and like Airdrie and Black Diamond and Canmore, and that whole surrounding area in Calgary is about 25 to 26,000 Métis people. Not all of them are Métis Nation members. But that's a huge opportunity when you look at business. When you look at being able to use that directory and look up restaurants, look up tradespeople, look up accountants. when you think about that, if there's 26,000 in Calgary alone, in the province they say there's close to 115,000 Métis. Those are huge opportunities to drive this to another level.
What the big white elephant is in the room that nobody's talking about, Darcy, is the 2016 Daniels case.
Mm-hmm.
And the Supreme Court ruling, is going to, set aside the Métis people on the same playing field as the First Nations.
Yes.
So we don't have those rights yet, but it gives us the opportunity to negotiate for those rights. We don't need it. It's wonderful. We have a framework agreement with Alberta Parks, I believe.
Yeah.
The latest one, the federal government with parks. We get free admission into the parks.
Yeah.
Wow. Why the hell aren't we doing the work in the parks?
Exactly.
Why are we not, as an Aboriginal people, stated that we get work there?
Yep.
It's great. This great framework agreement. We get free admission to the parks. What have they been working on all these years? Free admission?
Yeah.
I mean, let's get some work out of this. Let's get something that's got some substance and bite to it. I mean, I can't believe the number of people that were so happy about what happened. I asked them, well, what was the agreement? They don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other agreements. And it's all fine and dandy for people to say, oh, we have an agreement with this, we have an agreement with that. Who's policing it?
Exactly.
Who is the one who let's put some teeth into it so that there is something that we can go by.
Yeah.
The procurement strategy for Aboriginal business, that is the nice thing about it, is that the government agencies do want to use it. Mm-hmm. The agencies want to use it everywhere from Department of National Defence to Public Works Government Services Canada.
Yeah.
Parks Canada actually has place in this for where they want to use people that are registered and certified with the federal government.
Yeah.
The opportunities are there. But when we take a look at what's happening in Alberta and the Daniels case, I'm sorry I digressed there for a second, because the most important thing is that I talk about this, because this is probably the most important thing we're going to talk about right now, is the amount of money that is going to be coming into the Métis Nation over the next couple of generations.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of millions of dollars are coming to the Métis. Nobody knows that.
Yeah.
They kind of get, we kind of have an idea there's going to be some money coming. The economic development, the education, the all the aspects of this money coming to our nation. And we're putting it in the hands of people that I'm not sure, well, I am sure, they do not know how to properly take that funding, that money, those opportunities, and put them into something positive for the Métis people of Alberta. Not the couple of few people that they want to help out or they feel is going to be able to do it. We want this for everybody.
Yeah.
Now, what this is going to mean, Darce, is all of a sudden there's going to be, when some people realize there's hundreds of millions of dollars coming to the Métis Nation, as a person who doesn't have his card, there's going to be a flood of people coming to the nation.
Sure.
And with that means is that there's more money from the federal government coming to the Métis Nation, which is wonderful, as long as that money is used properly.
Yes.
If it's not used properly, I won't even see the money, because it's just going to be blown. Just throw it up in the wind. Well, I'd rather see it stay with Canada rather than wasted.
And one of the problems that I've had for quite some time when it comes to money is this $500 million over 10 years for housing. And I mean, I personally witnessed promises being made to communities that they will take care of the housing in that community. But then they go to the next community and make that same promise, and the next community and make that same promise, and the next community. And then when you hear about them talking about it in the press, or they put something on their website, it's, when we get the money, we're going to do consultations to figure out where that money needs to be spent. And my thing is if you were in touch with your people, wouldn't you already know where it needs to go? So my worry is that we're going to see a huge amount of bureaucracy all of a sudden. There's going to be jobs created to create more ministers and secretaries and admin people. But then the actual money going to housing is about a third of what everybody's expecting or less. because it's chewed up in consultations and traveling the province. It's chewed up in bureaucracy. And that's my big fear with this, is that if they don't, like you said, if they don't already know what's going on, then giving them $100 million, it's not going to fix the problem.
And the problem is that there's people there in head office that have no accountability.
Yeah.
Where is the accountability?
Absolutely.
We can talk about this and that and all the problems in the world, but let's find a solution.
Yes.
My staff, they don't come to me with a problem. If they have a problem, they bring it to me, but they have a solution behind the question.
Yeah.
And so why can our politicians not do that? They hide behind the fact, we want to make sure we're doing what's right for the people and not for ourselves. Okay.
Yeah.
You want consultation? We've already talked about this for years. Everybody knows what's going on.
Absolutely.
And right now, some people say the Métis Nation is a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Do I believe that? No. I personally don't see it. But then I'm self-sufficient. I'm not reliant on the nation.
Yeah.
I'm not reliant on people, on them making promises to me, for my livelihood and for my well-being.
Yeah.
Or for any business they give me, because I donate everything that we do for the nation in the past. Well, I shouldn't say everything. Of course, I've done for Métis Urban Housing when we were working there. It was a business.
Yeah.
But for what we do for the nation's office here, regional office, the plumbing work we did there, it was donated.
Mm-hmm.
The work that we're doing in the local 87 on the house and the church, I donate that.
Mm-hmm.
That is part of me trying to get back to our community.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to see from any businesses that I help start, that I help mentor.
Yeah.
I want to make sure they give back to the community.
Yeah.
I don't know how many businesses the Apitogasan says that they have helped start up. Sure they have. These businesses have started up, and Apitogasan has been right there to support them in starting up, and then you never hear from these businesses again.
Yeah.
They've taken the $75,000 that Apitogasan has given them as a grant, and they've ran with it.
Yeah.
And they've ran right around the street to any other community but ours.
Well, and how many of them are even actually still in business? I mean, who knows? Right?
Well, that's the other thing, is how many businesses have taken that money, ran it for a couple of years, and then sold the business.
Yeah.
And made that money, never offered to give anything back to the community.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Apitogasan, as far as I'm concerned. And they state certain things, and and I guess I shouldn't speak for Mike Ivey. Again, Mike and I do not talk, and so I do not have an opinion on Mike. Appy, I see what's going on, and I have an opinion on Apitogasan, because that is a Métis-owned business.
Absolutely.
Mike runs it. I think there could be changes done there, but until him and I sit down, we have the opportunity, as I'm willing to sit down with anybody in the Métis Nation, anybody in government, any minister, co-minister, any director, any staff. I, Rod Stagg, as a member of the Métis Nation of Alberta, will sit down, and as a businessman for the last 30 years, coaching for 25 years in minor sports, flying to Ottawa to represent the nation, doing everything that I can or will in the future and past, I will sit down and talk to them about the way I see things being run.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to know a Métis citizen's opinion, and they're willing to sit down with me, I will sit down with them respectfully and talk to them about it, and openly.
Yeah.
That's my position.
Well, I think that's a wonderful position to have. We're running short on time. I really want to thank you for being on the show. Is there anything, I guess, any final thoughts or anything, last words that you want to leave with people, or that we didn't talk about or touch on, anything like that?
The election.
Yeah.
The election. It doesn't matter what I think or say.
Yep.
I have an opinion. I'm willing to stand by everything that I said. If I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong.
Yeah.
When I'm right, I like people to know it, and to support people that need help inside our community. Like I said, provincially, that's going to be a tough election. Audrey's been there for all these years, and I love Audrey. I truly do. But I guess the nation will speak. On everything. Go to the polls on September 18th. It's a Tuesday, so a lot of people don't realize that, and they're going to be at work and they're busy. The polls, the pre-election polls, were outstanding. Probably up 75%.
Wow. Wow, that would be great.
And so get out and vote.
Yes.
If you believe in Lawrence, get out and vote for Lawrence. If you believe in Myrtle, get out and vote for Myrtle. I believe in Joe.
Yeah.
I truly believe that he could take us not to the future, but to the next level of leadership that will, for our children, our youth. Joe's, he's trying to do stuff with the youth now.
Yeah.
That's a big thing, is youth and seniors. With the youth, he wants to have input into what they want before the election. He wants that from the seniors. Even Joe's putting together a youth night at one of the at Tool Shed Brewery for a bunch of youth to go to listen to this person's, Graham, the owner of Tool Shed, the wonderful story of how he built his business. And it's wonderful. It's amazing what he did and how he kept his business going. For an entrepreneur, for a young person to hear this story will allow him to grow so much more, he or she, I'm sorry. And so those opportunities are there. We take a look at the local. We need more support for the locals.
For sure.
I want to become a member. I am a member of the nation, but of course I've had to become a true member of the local. I've just started. Of course, Len over there just does such a wonderful job. I mean, he volunteers, he takes care of things. He is a true committed member of our nation, Len Blondeau. Then we carry on. There's so many good people out there, and I think what's happened is that we've become a little bit stale in our community. And for us to be able to take it to that next level, we really have to take a look to the future, and that's our youth.
I agree, and I think for me, that's what I look at these elections. No matter who's in power, I think if you've been in power over 2 decades, that's too long. Because I've seen people work at jobs, just private industry jobs, where they're working not as a business owner, just working there for 20 years. They get stagnant. They don't have fresh ideas. They've been doing it too long. I've been at my job for 6 years, and I'll bet you somebody else could come in new and have 20 new ideas that I'm not even thinking about. Because I know how to do my job. This is kind of the status quo, and I think it's naturally a human just to get into a flow. And now that you're in that flow, it's almost impossible to get out. So I see this as an opportunity to not change because anybody's a bad human being, but just change because we need new ideas. We need fresh eyes. We need fresh blood to be in there who's willing to just roll up the sleeves and go to work.
I agree with what you're saying, Darcy, but I think there's one component that we should add, and that's there's never, ever a place not set at the table for our seniors.
Absolutely.
With what we're taking a look from our leadership that have been there for 20 years and were there during real bad times in the beginning. Like the Métis, the way that they supported the community and kept it going for all those years. I mean, Marlene started the business business night on the third Thursdays, and keeping that going since 1991, I believe. You take a look at the knowledge that she has. I truly pray that she stays and helps pass that knowledge on to whoever is the next president of the region.
Absolutely.
Again, Joe Pimlott, his heart is in the right place. Yeah. He will truly put everything he has into taking the nation to the next level.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll end it on that note. Again, Rod, I want to thank you for being on the show. And, hopefully after the elections, we can see some positive change. And I'd love to, maybe a year from now, if we see change in the election, I'd love to sit down again and see where we're at with a lot of these things that you talked about, with the directory and things like that. So
it would be wonderful. It would be lovely. I hope you don't mind me mentioning the youth podcast.
Nope, that's right.
Next Monday.
Yeah.
We're looking at that. Do not forget that August 30th, Myrtle Myrtle is putting on is hosting a forum for the candidates, her and Bob Phillips. So there's going to be lots and lots of people there. There's not going to be a whole bunch of time to talk to the forum that's going to be set up, just because there's going to be so many people there. So get there and get there early and talk to to each and every one of the delegates to make sure that you understand what their position is and what they are going to do for you if they do get in.
And I understand both people running for president, Audrey and Ron, are both going to be there, from what I understand. So.
I understand that. I heard that Audrey's going to be there. I have not heard if Ron's going to be there yet or not. Okay. But it would be nice if he was. He's a nice young man, I understand. Yeah. He's young, 38 years old. Does a great job up in Fort McKay for the Métis people up there. So there's that. I know Joe Pimlott is going to have a similar event in September. Okay. And so there's that. And of course, we want to, I understand that there's going to be at the Local 87, that there's going to be a youth and senior symposium of some sort where the youth and the seniors can get out and tell these delegates, these people running, what they want in the future. That's all that matters. This is the inclusion we need. Absolutely. We don't need 4 or 5 more of these. We just need to listen now.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much, Rod.
Thank you, Darcy.
All right.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Rod Stagg. I think he brings up a lot of interesting perspectives and a lot of interesting ways that the Métis Nation of Alberta has let down some of its members. And I think these are questions that definitely should be answered and need people in those positions to answer them. So, I thought it was a really good conversation. I want to thank Rod for coming on the show and being part of the Jig Is Up family. And next week, we're going to be recording with some Métis youth here in the Calgary area and getting their perspectives on what all this youth engagement buzzword means to them and what they want out of a Métis Nation and things like that. So it should be very interesting. You guys can watch for that next week. And then the week after that will be me and Jason sitting down together doing our normal ranting. But we were able to actually sit down face-to-face and have that conversation. So the next few weeks, those are some episodes to look forward to. I want to thank you guys all for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy the show and you want to see more of this content, more of this kind of show, or more interviews, more guests on the show, please head over to our Patreon page and search for The Jig Is Up. And you will find us there, and you can pledge $5. And I also wanted to remind you guys, I did a live video where I announced this, but we are doing a contest where if we get, I believe I said 5 more people subscribed or signed up to pledge on our Patreon page, that we would do a draw for a coffee mug and blue Métis flag for all of our patrons. And that's for patrons only, so if you want to get in on that contest, head over. And for the price of a Starbucks coffee, you could have about a 1 in 20 chance of winning a coffee mug and blue Métis flag. So head over to Patreon, check us out, and sign up. And that will greatly help us continue to bring you more interesting stories and more guests and things like that. For now, though, I'm looking forward to doing next week and having those youth on and hearing what they have to say. So I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you guys all get out there and engage with your community and be strong, proud Métis. But until next week, the jig is up.
You are the spark that's starting a fire that will spread across this land. And it will be a fire that doesn't burn, but a fire that cleanses. A fire that ignites in our hearts and creates light.